Hello everybody, welcome or welcome back to the channel and welcome to today's video. So I'm very excited for this because this is my third year in a row when I'm making the mid-year book freakout tag. I made one in 2024, 2025, and now I'm making the third one in 2026. Without any further ado, let's start with the first prompt for this video, and that is best book or books you've read so far in 2026. I was actually looking at my list of all of the books I read thus far this year. I actually don't really know what's the total number of them. Let's check out my Goodreads account really quick. So I read 73 books thus far. Granted, probably like 20 of them were like manga and graphic novels. So actual books is more so like 50 something, which I think is okay for my goal of 96 total books this year. Going back to the prompt, and that is of best books that I read thus far this year, I actually didn't have a lot of books that I like genuinely like absolutely loved and I was obsessed with. I had a lot of books that I liked, but I had very few, I should say, standouts, if you will. Starting with a manga series. This is actually my first manga series that I'm ever reading, obviously with exception of graphic novels. But this is Witch Hat Atelier by Kamome Shirahama, and this series is so good. Obviously, they had the debut of the anime this year, and it is just amazing. This is basically following our main character, Coco, who is portrayed here on the cover of the first volume. And she basically is living in this world where there are witches, but normal people cannot become witches. You are either born a witch or you're not. And all of her life, she's dreamed about becoming a witch, but because this is not possible for her, she kind of like came to terms with the idea that she is just going to work at her mother's atelier. But one day she is visited by this very mysterious witch named Kifri. He is basically introducing her in this world of the witches and in this world of magic, and Coco has to become a witch in order to save her mom. And I will just leave it at that. The discussion on witches and powers and just like magic overall is so nuanced in this manga series. And you can think about magic as replacing things that actually exist in our real world, like art or the process of creation. I also think this series depicts really well what it is to be a child, like 12, 13, and to be completely in awe and fascinated about the world, and also what it means to have people that you're looking up to, and great mentors and teachers and stuff like that. And this series has so many interesting things that can spark a discussion. I also love the anime, it is very well done. And yeah, if you haven't done so already, I would highly recommend Witch Hat Atelier. You can also read it online legally. It is great. It is amazing. I have all 14 volumes that were published in English thus far, and I read the other new chapters online. The things that are revealed, especially in the later chapters, are just like bonkers. And I had a great time with this series thus far in 2026. Another book that I absolutely love this year is The Tarot Reader of Versailles by Anya Bergman. Look at this cover. It is absolutely stunning, and the story that it contains is even more gorgeous than the cover. This takes place during the reign of Marie Antoinette in France, and we are following our main character, Lenormand, who is a fortune teller. So she's obviously predicting the future of these very influential and powerful French people. But one day she stumbles upon Caitlin, who is an Irish woman who can see the people's past, and they might start a romance, but there are also some political kind of like aspirations in between that. And it is a story about love and betrayal and mysticism in a way. And it just like talks about real like historical things that happen interwoven with this kind of like fictionalized plot. And I had a great time reading this story, and I just love these characters so much. So if that sounds like your thing and you typically like historical fiction, I would really recommend The Tarot Reader of Versailles. This author has another book called The Witches of something, The Witches of Vardo. Yeah, this one that I have right here. I really want to read this one as well because I enjoyed the Tarot Reader of Versailles so much. So, The Witches of Vardo is on my list of books that I want to read sooner rather than later, let's say. And then another book that I absolutely love, it is named Madonna in a Fur Coat by Sabahattin Ali. I just loved the way that it is written. I just loved the narrative devices that were used with this book. And I actually, like, while reading this book, I had to research some things about Turkey and its kind of like political landscape during those times, also about the author, like who he was and what were his political stances in those times and stuff like that. And I just really liked how it was written, and I think it is such an interesting story. I would kind of like compare it to White Nights by Dostoevsky, but I enjoyed Madonna in a Fur Coat so much more than White Nights. Moving along to the next prompt, and that is best sequels you've read so far in 2026. So, when it comes to sequels, I adored A Drop of Corruption by Robert Jackson Bennett. It is the sequel to The Tainted Cup, and I'm gonna talk more about this series in this video because I really enjoyed it. Also by Mona Awad, I read at the beginning of the year We Love You Bonnie. That is a sequel to Bonnie, obviously. And the thing about Mona Awad's books, they are always so crazy and bonkers, and I don't really know what to expect from her. But We Love You Bunny was nothing short of extraordinary and dumb, and I just loved it. So I had to give it a shout out. Also, a book that is not theoretically a sequel, I believe, but I would still categorize it as a sequel if that makes sense, and that is The Long Game by Rachel Reed. I obviously read the Heated Rivalry book series because of the show, and The Long Game was just like really cool. Is this a literary masterpiece? No, it is not, but I just enjoyed continuing to read about Shane and Ilya's story. And yeah, I had a fun time with this book and the whole series overall. The next prompt is new releases you haven't read yet but want to. So I was actually looking at my video about highly anticipated releases for this year, and I was actually surprised to see the fact that I actually read all of the books that were already published in the first half of the year. So I'm very pleased with that. But that being said, some books that I really want to get to and that were released earlier this year. The first one would be Better in Black by Cassandra Clare. These are pretty much stories about certain characters in the Shadowhunters Chronicles world, let's say. And I think some of these were already published in other places online and stuff like that, but this specific edition is new and it was released earlier this year. So I want to get to this, especially because I'm like so excited for the newest release that we will get in the fall from the Shadowhunters world. So Yeah, this is Better in Black by Cassandra Clare. I'm very excited for this. Also, another book that I'm very excited about that I didn't really got to thus far that was published in February of this year. It is called Cleopatra by Sara El Arifi. It says, "You know my name, but you do not know me. Death will silence me no longer." I just think this is going to be amazing. I also love the gold foiling details on the cover of this. This is an ARC copy, by the way. That's why the cover looks a bit different. I actually listened to the conversation that Sara El Arifi had with Samantha Shannon, I think last year, potentially. I forgot when I read the Priory, but they had a very, very interesting conversation about their writing process and stuff like that. And I was really excited that I got this art copy. Yeah, those would be the books that are new releases, and I'm excited to read sometime in the future. Speaking of new releases, let's talk about most anticipated releases for the second half of the year. So, in chronological order, and the first two of these might already be out by the time you're watching this video, but A Trade of Blood, which is the third installment of the Shadow of the Leviathan series by Robert Jackson Bennett, is coming out on August 4. So, again, this might already be out by the time you're watching this. I am very excited for this third installment in the series because I absolutely loved the first two books. And I think we will learn more about a very mysterious character in this third installment. Next up is Dreamland by Olivia Blake, that is going to be published August 11. So, again, very, very soon, or already out by the time you're watching this. Daggerbound by T. Kingfisher, which is the sequel to Sword Heart, is going to be published August 25. The Knave and the Moon, which is the sequel to The Night and the Moth by Rachel Gillig, is going to be published September 1st. Deadbeat by Lee Bardugo, which is the third installment of the Ninth House series, is going to be published September 15. The Lost King of Fairy, part of the Wicked Powers series by Cassie Clare, is going to be published November 3rd. So excited for this one. And then in December, obviously, The Fires of December by Brandon Sanderson, which is part of Wade's Travels series. This is the same series as Yumi and Tress, and I just liked those books a lot. So I'm very excited for this third standalone installment from this series by Brandon Sanderson. Is going to be published on December 8th. So those would be the books that I'm really expecting to read, and I'm excited for them for the second half of the year. Moving along to the next prompt for this mid-year book freakout tag, and that would be biggest disappointments. Now, I don't say this lightly, but I was very excited about The Swan's Daughter by Roshani Chakshi, and unfortunately, it kind of fell flat for me just because it was very, very YA, and the plot was not that imaginative, let's say. So, yeah, this book didn't really work for me, unfortunately. Also, another book that I was very excited about, Clara and the Devil by Olivia Blake and illustrated by Little Kimura. Now, I love Olivia Blake. This, unfortunately, wasn't really that great in my opinion. I just think it was a little bit too vague, and I just wanted more from the plot and our main character. And yeah, this just didn't really do that much for me, unfortunately. Next up, biggest surprise. And I will have to say that the biggest surprise for me personally was The Adventures of Amina Al-Sirafi by Shannon Chakraborty. This book started like it has almost like two parts, not necessarily in the way that it is split in the actual book, but thematically and almost like genre wise, I would consider it as having two parts. The first part is this really nicely written literary fiction, almost like it just feels so eloquent, and it just feels like it's part of the real world, right? And then the second half of this book is very, very fantasy heavy. And the amount of like twists and turns and bonkers subplots that are happening in the second part of this book are just so on the nose, but so fun and exciting. And I just really did not expect for the fantasy subplots to go this hard in this book. And so I just have to consider it as the biggest surprise thus far, because I had like a great time with it, but also I consider it the biggest surprise because of the twists and turns that were happening in the second part of this book. So once again, this was The Adventures of Amina Al-Sirafi. Next up is favorite new author or new to me author. And I was really thinking a lot about this because I don't think I read that many books from new authors or new to me authors. And I decided to give this spot, let's say, in the video to an author that was new for me this year, and that is Kamome Shirahama of Witch Hat Atelier fame. As I was saying in the beginning of this video, I absolutely loved this manga series, and it is still ongoing. I'm sure that this author will give us amazing plot points and twists and turns and character development and everything that we want from this series. So, shout out to this series and to this author because it is exquisitely done. Next prompt is newest favorite characters, and there are quite a few characters that I love. Obviously, Scott and Kip from the Heated Rivalry series for obvious reasons.
I am very sorry about that.
Dalila, or the Mistress of Poisons from The Adventures of Amina Al Sirafi. I just love how mysterious this character is, but also I do believe that we will learn more about Dalila in the second installment of this series. Some things were alluded to, let's say, in the first book, and yeah, I'm excited to read the sequel to The Adventures of Amin Al Sirafi. Another favorite character of mine is Anna Dolabra from the Tainted Cup Shadow of the Leviathan series. Again, another very mysterious character, but in the second installment of this series, we learn a lot about Anna Dolabra, her past, her story, and I do believe we will learn even more things in the third installment of this series. So I just love this character so much. Now, the next two characters are not technically new to me because I already knew and loved them because this was a reread for me this year. But I reread the Dark Artifices series, obviously, in preparation for The Last King of Fairy, and I just could not compile a list of my favorite characters without talking about Cristina Rosales and Diana Rayborn because I absolutely love them in the Dark Artifices series. Next up is books that made you cry, and obviously here there is no competition. I just have to give it to this mammoth of a book, A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. This is so sad and devastating and heartbreaking and gut wrenching and all of the sad adjectives that you could think of. This is a lot, but I am very happy that I finally got to this and that I finally finished this one. A Little Life is devastating, and I cried multiple times while reading this. And moving along from crying to happiness. So, books that made you happy, and nothing made me happier than reading the finale and the conclusion of Heartstopper. This is Heartstopper Volume 6, and as I said, it is the conclusion of the story of Nick and Charlie. And I was just anticipating this for such a long time. It finally got published, and Alice Osman delivered. Obviously, I would expect nothing less from her and from this series. This was absolutely immaculate and elite, and I'm just so happy for these characters. I'm happy that everyone kind of got their arc completed and everyone is where they deserve to be in their life, and I just love this. So once again, this is Heartstopper Volume 6. Moving along from that, the next prompt is, and also I think this is the second to last prompt, so we are almost already done. Most beautiful books you've bought so far this year or received. I really love the cover of this book and this specific edition. This is Oranges Are Not the Only Fruit by Jeanette Winterson. I also really liked the book itself. Another book that I really like is this collection of dark fairy tales by Victor Wendt. This specific edition is just stunning and gorgeous, and it has also some sprayed edges. It is illustrated by this amazing illustrator, Luciana Nedela. Trying to find some illustrations to show you, but it is just hauntingly beautiful, and I had a really nice time reading through this dark fairy tale collection by Victor Wendt. And then also, while speaking of just beautiful, gorgeous books, I just have to give another shout out to this specific edition of A Little Life by Hanya Nagihara. This is the 10th anniversary edition, and it has also this illustration of Jude, I would assume, in the back of it. And I just really like this specific edition of it. And yeah, I think I've been really good this year at not just buying books because they look pretty. So I'm pleased with that aspect. And then last but not least, what books do you need to read by the end of the year? Boy, oh boy. Obviously, I do want to read all of the books that I talked about when I was talking about the most anticipated releases for the second half of the year. I am so incredibly excited for all of those books, and I would wish to read them by the end of the year. If that's going to happen, that's a completely different story. Another book that I want to read potentially by the end of the year, let's see if I can do that, is Stormlight number 5, Wind and Truth by Brendan Sanderson. And then another book series that I am excited to read, and hopefully I will be able to read it this year, but it is starting with Daughter of Chaos by A.S. Webb. I actually got the arc of the second installment of this series. It is called Daughter of Faith, and I obviously had to buy the first one in this series. This is something like Greek mythology related, and it just sounded really interesting. So I hope to read it soon. On the back of this book, it says it will be her destiny to destroy the gods. In ancient Greece, the 12 gods of Olympus rule with fear, demanding sacrifice, obedience, and silence. As a mortal girl, Danae has always lived in their shadow until the day she takes a bite of a mysterious golden apple. Suddenly haunted, marked by a prophecy she doesn't understand, she's forced to flee. She's not here to win glory. She's not here to bow to Olympus. She will haunt the gods. She'll drag them screaming from Olympus. Yeah, this sounded really cool and interesting. And I also received a message from someone on Instagram saying that they really liked this series. So I'm even more excited to get to it sometime soon, hopefully. And that was the last prompt of the Meteor Book Freakout tag. Please let me know in the comments down below what books you're excited about for the second half of the year. What do you wish to read next? I would like to know that. And yeah, thank you all so much for watching. Like, subscribe if you want to do that. And I will see you soon with a new video here on the channel. Bye, everyone.